What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to examine Uncanny X-Men issue 146. This is the continuation of the storyline where the X-Men are fighting Doctor Doom and Arcade. In the previous issue, Arcade's sidekick, Miss Locke, came to the X-Men and said, Arcade has been kidnapped by Doctor Doom, and I have kidnapped some of the X-Men's civilian loved ones. Jean Grey's parents, Colossus's younger sister, Nightcrawler's girlfriend, Angel's girlfriend, and Maury McTaggart and Stevie Hunter have all been kidnapped by Miss Locke, and if you don't go to whatever Eastern European country it is that Doctor Doom is hiding out in and rescue Arcade, then I will kill your friends and loved ones. So the X-Men have a little bit of a debate. We can't risk the lives of our loved ones, but we also don't want the bad guys to think that they can blackmail us anytime they want. And so they put together a second X-Men team consisting of Banshee, Polaris, Havoc, Iceman, and that might be it, I think. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank if there's someone else on this secondary team. And those guys, they go to rescue the hostages from Murder World. And we're mostly focusing on them in this issue. We do kind of get caught up with what's going on with the main X-Men team in Doctor Doom's little secondary home away from home, if you will. They are all put in various traps that kind of limits their attempts at escaping. Wolverine is in some weird MC Escher room. If he moves, the room kind of assaults his senses. Nightcrawler is in a big blank cube. He doesn't know what's on the outside of the cube, and he cannot blind teleport. If he does, he might teleport into someone or something, and that would kill him. Colossus is in a room hanging on a rock, and there's a whirlpool, and he doesn't need to breathe, so he could just fall in the water and then get out that way, but there's lasers in the water, and those might cut into him. Angel is in a room where there's a whole bunch of lasers. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. Storm has been turned into a statue. We saw that at the end of the previous issue. In fact, in this issue, I thought maybe they had forgotten that, because we see Storm, Doom says, go get me some tea, or something like that. And I was thinking, did they forget that she turned into a statue at the end of the previous issue? But no, that's actually a robot that Doctor Doom has created for some reason, and then we see that Storm is still in the form of a statue. And while all this is going on, Storm is creating some very dangerous storms all over the planet. We are seeing it wherever the other team of X-Men are, somewhere in America. I believe they are somewhere in New York State. I think that's where Arcade's, I think that's where Murder World is, and there's some pretty bad storms there. There's some pretty bad storms in the Caribbean, where Cyclops and Lee Forrester are hiding out. They've been shipwrecked there for a couple of issues, and Cyclops' blindfold comes off, and his optic blasts release. And so now Lee knows that Scott is a mutant, and then that subplot doesn't go any further in this issue. And then the storm is also getting pretty bad where Doctor Doom, Arcade, and the rest of the X-Men are. So just about all over the planet. I don't know exactly where Doctor Doom is hiding out right now. I don't think it's actually in Latveria. I know that he is temporarily deposed as the leader of Latveria. I'm assuming it's still, like, pretty close to Latveria, like within 25 miles, I would guess. I think it's close enough that Doom wants to be ready to take back his country whenever he feels like he's ready, and it wouldn't make sense for him to be too far away from his goal. So we've got somewhere, you know, like I said, somewhere in Eastern Europe, the Caribbean, and New York State, the storms are getting bad everywhere. And so I assume it's getting bad, like, all over the planet. We don't see, like, you know, somebody over in Wisconsin, like, oh man, storms are getting bad outside. We don't see something like that, but I think we can draw conclusions that if it's getting bad in these three places that are so far away from each other, it's getting bad all over the place. I don't have a whole lot to say here. The second X-Men team, they are able to rescue the hostages pretty easily. They get in and out of Murder World in less than an issue. I'm pretty sure the main X-Men, it took them 2 issues to get out of Murder World. So bravo to this team that doesn't have any experience working together. Banshee has experience fighting Arcade, but the rest of these guys don't, and they're able to get out in 1 issue. issue. Less than an issue, because we spent like half the issue getting caught up on what happened to the other X-Men team with Doctor Doom. And so that's kind of impressive with these guys. And I'm going to say it again. I said it when I was talking about issue 145, I think. Since we have spent a couple of issues setting up this second team and putting them together, I do wish that we could have kept this other team around. That we could have them go on missions doing this thing over here while the other X-Men, like, here in about 10 issues, the main X-Men team is going to be stuck in space fighting the Brood. While they're in space, while the X-Men are a little bit later, they are presumed dead, and that's when Professor Xavier puts together the New Mutants. It'd be kind of cool if, while the main X-Men team is presumed dead, if this secondary team, if they could be going around doing missions and stuff. And you could still put together the New Mutants while this second team is doing stuff. You could have the second team doing field work, and then Professor Xavier insists that the New Mutants, you guys are not X-Men. You are staying here. You are students. You are not going out into the field at all. And that was kind of a running thing throughout the New Mutant series. So you could still do the origin of the New Mutants while Professor X thinks that the X-Men are dead. But it just seems like a wasted opportunity that we are spending so much time putting together this secondary team of characters who have walked away from the X-Men, and then you're not going to do anything with it. In a little bit, within I think 20 issues, Angel leaves the team, and instead of him just leaving and going who knows where, you could have him join this other team. Maybe he says, I can't work with Wolverine, I don't like this guy, he's a psychopath, I don't trust him, but I still believe in Professor Xavier's dream. I'll go over here to this other team, and I'll work with Iceman. I work really well with him, we've known each other since we were kids. That'll work. That'd be interesting. I think there's a lot of directions you could have gone with this, and in about 10 years, really less than that, in about 5 years, that's when you've got 3 X books. You've got the New Mutants, X Factor, and then the main X-Men team. And then by like 87, I think that's when Excalibur starts. And then 91 is when they say, okay, there's no point in holding back. We're going to have 2 books that are each X-Men. You've got X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, and then you've still got Excalibur and X-Factor, and then New Mutants had morphed into X-Force by that point. There's no reason that they couldn't have done that here. You wouldn't necessarily have to have 2 books, but you could kind of rotate your screen time between 2 different teams. And maybe Claremont, who likes to focus on the character of these characters as opposed to the action plot stuff, maybe that would have gotten in the way of his sensibilities. He prefers focusing on the quieter moments with some action plot stuff, and if he had 2 teams that he was balancing, it would have been harder to do that. I can see that. It still feels like this is a big deal that we're setting up another team, and then they're just going to be disbanded within a couple of issues. I do want to talk about, at one point near the end of the issue, Arcade strikes a match on Doctor Doom's armor. And this was seen as a very big deal by John Byrne, who at this time was writing and drawing the Fantastic Four. And as I've talked about in earlier videos, John Byrne was kind of frustrated with Chris Claremont. He felt like Claremont seemed to think that he was the more important factor in the success of the X-Men series, and he would put in words that didn't really match the pictures that John Byrne had drawn. And so John Byrne got frustrated, and he left the book. And so now, my understanding is John Byrne sees this issue where Doctor Doom allows Arcade to assault his person, and Doctor Doom is very proud. He would not allow somebody like Arcade to do this to him. And he does say at one point, I find you amusing. As long as you continue to be amusing, I will continue to let you live. But then at this point in the book, Doctor Doom is a little frustrated about something, and Arcade is mouthing off to him, and then he strikes the match on his armor. John Byrne, rightly so, I would say, is saying Dr. Doom would not stand for this. He would not allow Arcade to do this. And so in an issue of Fantastic Four, I don't remember which one, Dr. Doom is talking to a whole bunch of Doombots, and the idea at this point is that Dr. Doom is busy, so every Dr. Doom appearance in the Marvel Universe is not necessarily Doom himself. Some of them are Doombots, and he's talking to one and says, what happened to your armor here? And he he says, Arcade struck a match on my armor. And so then Dr. Doom destroys that Doombot. And then it's basically John Byrne saying that Chris Claremont, you had no right to use a character that is in my purvey. I am writing and drawing the Fantastic Four. Dr. Doom falls under my territory. You should not have used Dr. Doom and then used him in a way that is contradictory to how Dr. Doom would actually act. And this is backed up by Roger Stern, who said that Chris Claremont wanted Nightcrawler to be the son of the Doctor Strange villain Nightmare. And Roger Stern was at the time writing Doctor Strange, and he said, no, Nightmare is my character. He's a Doctor Strange villain. You can't use him like that. And I guess Chris Claremont maybe just felt like, if it's a character in the Marvel Universe, I can use them. Who cares if it's an actual X-Men villain? And then you have something like this, where much as I like Chris Claremont's writing most of the time, this does feel very out of character for Doctor Doom. And so John Byrne kind of fixes that with a retcon in whatever issue of Fantastic Four that it was in. And then, and I don't know if there was later, like I call this retcon ping pong, where writers or creators are going back and forth with retcons, where someone will say, actually, that thing that that person said, that didn't really happen. For example, the Inhuman character Lockjaw, depending on who's writing a comic with the Inhumans, sometimes Lockjaw is said to be just a pet of the Inhuman royal family, and then sometimes someone will say, no, Lockjaw actually has intelligence. He's as smart as Gorgon, for example, and he just looks like a big happy dog. And then I've seen people go back and forth on that. No, he's just a dog. No, he's actually very smart. That I would call retcon ping pong. And I was thinking that, I looked into this a little bit before I started filming this video, I was thinking that this had gone on for a little while of, is this a Doombot or is it the real deal Doom? It seems to have only gone on one more time, and it was fairly recently, around the time of Axis, I think. It was in Loki, Agent of Asgard, issue 6, I believe. Loki is fighting some Doombots while the real Doctor Doom is talking to Loki, and he says, I even allowed Arcade to strike a match on me so that he would think that he was dealing with a Doombot. Aren't I so clever? Bwahaha. And it really doesn't make that much sense. Why, then, if that was the real Doom in this issue of X-Men, later, why would Doom create a Doombot and then say, hey, why did you allow Arcade to strike a match on you, Doombot? I'm going to destroy you for that. Why would he do that? For the benefit of the other Doombots who should know that they are Doombots? It doesn't really make sense. I kind of understand John Byrne wanting to fix this with a retcon, and even though, I mean, I've said before, John Byrne is probably one of the most egotistical people on the planet. He has said many things that I strongly disagree with, but I do believe in this case, it makes sense that he would want to take a retcon something that had happened with a character that he is supposed to have control over in the Fantastic Four, something that like I said, I really like the writing of Chris Claremont most of the time, but in this case, this didn't really make any sense. So this was where all of that got started, and for all I know, maybe there was more of this retcon ping pong that I'm unaware of. But that is about all that I have to say about this issue of the X-Men. So let's consider this one examined.